They all ran out crying. So what was the test like? Was it hard? Was it fair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
If I definitely studied more, it's
Okay.
better.
My number one concern is always making sure that I'm being fair to you guys. So like, because I looked at the questions and some of them I put up there and went, that one was really an obscure point. So I pulled away from that one. So, and that's why I threw in the bonus question. So, and I noticed that it's out of, the test shows it's out of 5.25. I'll make that test out of 5. So the bonus, if you got the bonus mark, then that's where the bonus comes. It was the one about Netscape, because Netscape is the
because I didn't know for sure which one it was.
Yeah.
Due to the fact that like none of them actually said you can choose multiple answers.
Okay.
Like, so that was one of where we were like,
okay.
Which one was those questions?
Okay, because I would have thought that it was labeled.
No,
So okay. All right.
In my thing, it wasn't labeled, so.
Okay. Well, I'll check out whether or not the success rate was where it should have been for Netscape. But yeah, because that was a reward to those who did the first week's case study. If you remember in week 1, I said, oh, okay, well, since nobody read it, I would recommend reading it because you're going to see it later in the semester. So.
I remember like reading it, but
yeah.
I don't remember a lot of information from it. I read it last night.
Yeah. So then at least there were two possibilities. Well, there were 2 answers.
Yeah, that was definitely the one thing that confused us, because like you said, you could like choose multiple answers.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the last question, so I could choose multiple.
Well, and that was my intent, but the problem with Blackboard is because I randomized, because I didn't because we're so close in here, I didn't want someone looking over and they happen to be on the same question. So your question order was different than Jessica's, who was different than whomever's. Yeah. So it makes it a little bit fairer, as well as I randomized the multiple choice. So it was more difficult for people to have wandering eyes, because if you studied and the person behind you, because I was going to say the person beside you, I don't want her getting upset with me.
Oh, she really.
So the person behind you just happens to look over and sees your answer, they're benefiting from your hard work. So I was trying to keep it that way. So because I randomized it, it made it so that the bonus question should have been at the end, but it just took it and put it wherever. So that was my intent. So,
it's okay.
So I'm slowly learning all of the back end stuff with the Blackboard. So, and I've got, and I'm going to give everyone an opportunity with Lab 3 to go over another chance doing a different type of assignment. So we'll talk about that too. Oh.
But it's up to us if we want to do it, right?
Yeah, because the intent is that with Lab 3, you're going to have to do it eventually anyhow, because it's writing content for your website. Yeah. So you're going to have to do it by October 31st. But if you do it based on what we talk about today and submit me the link, then you'll get an opportunity to replace your bottom lab mark. So if you got a lab that you missed, or if you didn't get perfect on it and you got perfect on this, it would replace that one.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's kind of how I'm overcoming. That's how I'm overcoming Lab 3.
Yeah. That would be. I thought you were just like giving us another thing.
Yeah.
To just like completely replace that one, and I'm like, well, what if I get my like a worse mark on that one?
Yeah.
Than what I.
You can't get worse. Like the bottom line is, if you submit this week's lab and you got half of a mark out of 2 and your lowest mark is 1.5, I'm not going to replace 1.5 with half a mark. You cannot do worse. So what the heck? It's,
yeah, like that way I understand the part. It's just because like I don't know for sure if you actually replace that one. And we were supposed to have our Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes.
Today.
Were you like? Did you look at somewhere?
Well, okay. Here's what I've learned about college students. If I just say by 2 weeks from now, it won't get done. So I said by this week, and we're going to talk about it next week. We're talking about social media. So
Okay.
if you haven't done it yet, then this is your reprieve. You've set up. That's all you need to do. You do? Okay, well then you don't. Yeah, I would recommend that you create a secondary Facebook for professional facing, because I've seen my son's Facebook, and I shake my head because that's the one that he's putting on his resumes, and he's 23 or 24, so he's in he works in the bars, and there's some pictures where you go, oh, in the post where you go, oh no, but
Well, if he works in a bar and that's where he wants to be.
he doesn't.
Okay, then
Yeah.
it should.
His posts are inappropriate. He's talking about Donald Trump. He's talking about all the different things that you feel free to post, but keep your personal life personal and your professional life so that the people can see what you're up to professionally.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could lose out on a job. And people like HR, the first thing that they do now, if you're down to the final 3, they'll look you up on the internet. And no? Okay, well then
because it's not my last name.
Oh, okay. So then use your the proper last name as a professional Facebook, and just make sure that you've got professional posts going to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my record. So we will go on to that next week, and we'll talk about social media branding and things.
And then, so I just create another one, and where is that being posted?
Well, you're going to have it so we can talk about it next week. So you don't have to post it. But what's going to happen, though, is I'd recommend once you've created them, go into your website that you've now created and change all your social media links to point to those new pages. So then when I'm going through your final assignment, I can click that button and I can see what your social media posts are. And I would suggest starting to do posts now. Like it takes you 30 seconds rather than, or even 3 minutes rather than at the end of the semester when you're trying to study for finals, you're trying to, because is this your final semester or your final year? Okay, so you're still got a lot of pressure going on. So I would just recommend you do it. What's that? No.
Yeah. I feel like
I have a very broad student pool that I'm teaching this semester because I've got first, second, third, and postgraduates. So I've got every student that you could possibly imagine. So a lot of fun.
Wow.
We were just talking about the social media. So for your project, I would recommend creating the social media pages for the joint, not the joint assignment. Yeah, now this is October 3rd. I should probably have clarified that one. So yeah, for your company that you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so create special ones for that. You need the Facebook, you need the Twitter, and you need or 3 social media.
Yeah, we made all of them. Yeah,
Perfect.
LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. So you're good to go.
Where can we find the
Instruction.
record?
Oh, under YouTube, my YouTube, so if you go YouTube search, Keith Connell, MKTG2032. It should pull it up, because I've got that as a playlist. KEITHCONNELL, and then go MKTG, and then that should pull it up there. Yeah, there I am. And that gives you also, if you just go to my channel, that will give you I've got a separate playlist for WordPress, and right now I've only got one video up for WordPress, but it gives you a good start. All right, so why don't we get started? We've got a lot of stuff to cover over the next hour and 20 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're not going to take a break, since you've just had, some of you have had almost an hour break. So all in all, was the test relatively fair? No one walked out slashing my tires or anything else? Okay, cool. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to go over the results of the start, stop, continue with you. I appreciate your feedback. That was great. Thank you. Some of the stuff that came up, I can't change. Other stuff I will change. So let's, starting at the start explaining the assignments clearer. I apologize for that. I've written the instructions out and I reread them, and to me they seemed very, very clear. So in writing they seemed clear, but I guess in practice they didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the assignments a little bit more, give you a little bit more instruction on how to do it, and the keyword research section, the assignment was one that just turned into a mess because Google changed the way they were doing things. and when I'd written it 2 weeks ago, everything kind of got messed up. So we're going to address that one actually in a couple minutes as well. So I will certainly start going over and demonstrating. Some of you have said that you want to work more in groups. Now, while we're in class, the assignments that I'm giving in class give you the flexibility to work in a group. So while you're sitting in the classroom, and I've got an in-class assignment that's not a lab or a labs or an assignment submission, you feel free to work within a group. That's not a problem at all. Okay. Some of you want me to give more in-class assignments, and then on others, you're also saying stop giving in-class assignments. So that one's kind of up in the air. The semester is set. And there are a couple more in-class assignments coming up. There's one today. But otherwise, yeah, the semester set, so I'll do what I can for that. A lot of you have said continue recording in class. I think that it's a great idea. It works well. And if you happen to miss something, or some days you're in class and your mind's just not there for whatever reason, you've got a big test after this class, you've got you might have something else on your mind, it's a good way to refresh as well, and it's a good study tool. So I'm going to keep going with that. Thank you for the feedback. Kahoots. Now, Kahoots are a very interesting one because either you love them or you hate them. Yeah. We're not going to do a Kahoot today. But so either you like them or so you like them. I had some feedback that, you know what, stop doing them. They're a waste of time. I don't like them. And if you're not enjoying it, that's fine. I understand that. While we do Kahoots, I typically will aim for either at the very beginning of class or at the very end. And if we're at the very end and we're doing a Kahoot and you just don't like them, excuse yourself from the class. It's as simple as that. There's no problem. We're all adults. I'm not going to get upset with you for excusing yourself during the Kahoot. But it is really, studies have indicated it's an excellent review tool. And it's good for preparation for tests. I'm getting some feedback that the theory is too much. The good news is that actually as the semester moves forward, we're going to get more into the computers and less into the theory. I need to give you a background of how the lay of the land is so that you can understand. And then once you've got that and you've got the concepts as well as the terms, then I can say, okay, well, you know what, let's do a keyword research on this and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So here's one. So some of you want me to give more in-class assignments. Some of you want me to stop giving assignments every week. And again, based on your feedback, based on the semester layout, you're going to find that the in-class assignments are going to trickle down because we're going to be focusing more on take-home. I'm not going to be assigning them every week, but I'm going to be honest with you. Next half of the semester, things are going to really pick up. And you're going to need to step up the pace a little bit. So if you've been sliding behind, I would recommend staying on the game on that one. And then, of course, stop the Kahoots. I think that the majority of us enjoy the Kahoot. They find it beneficial. So I'm going to continue them. And like I said, I'm going to certainly give everyone who doesn't want to take part in it the opportunity to excuse themselves. For those of you who haven't been present for a Kahoot, it's an online game that we played last week, and it's basically a contest. And I typically will bring in a prize, but I sometimes eat them on the way in, and then you're out of luck. So because they're typically a chocolate bar, and that's my weakness. All right, so today we've talked about the start, stop, continue. Are there any questions about the survey? So basically, what happens now is I take your responses and I give them to my boss. And then I analyze it and I develop a strategy accordingly. So my strategy, the majority of what I've heard from the start, stop, continue is that you need more demonstration or more instruction on the assignment. So that's my number one takeaway for the semester. Okay, so we're going to talk about URL domain names. We're going to talk about page titles, alt tags, because all of this revolves around on-page SEO, search engine optimization, as well as we're going to talk about some rules for posts. Now, I might as well do this now. Lab 3, I think that for the most part, everyone was kind of disappointed, or a lot of you might have been disappointed. I walked away going, okay, you know what? Because of the way that Google happened and the way that everything went, it wasn't really fair to you. So here's what I'm going to do, because I give until it hurts. I always do. It's a fault of mine. I'm just generous. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do a post where you're going to write a post. You're going to put it onto your website, which, just in case you were wondering, that's part of part 2 of your assignment. So I'm actually giving you extra marks for part 2 of your assignment. You write the post based on what we talk about, submit it, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Just for today, just because you've worked hard, I'm going to give you the opportunity to overwrite your lowest lab mark. So if you've got, say, for example, if you've missed the lab, so you've got a 0, or if you've got a 1 out of 2 and you're disappointed with it, and you submit the assignment and you get a 2 out of 2, it will replace whatever your lowest lab is. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, what happens if I get lower than my lowest mark? Then it doesn't count. You cannot do worse than you're sitting at right now. You can only improve your mark. So that's how generous I am. All right, any questions? Because that one kind of got convoluted. All right, moving forward, URL. Now, this is actually kind of a fun, one of my more fun parts of the course. At least this is one that I enjoy, and I really had to clean up some of them. So historical perspective of the URL with respect to the keywords. Typically what would happen in the past was organizations would try to get a URL. Everyone's familiar with the term URL at this point, the domain name, your address on the web. Anyways, they would try to get something and they would be strategic and include keywords into the domain name. So for example, with me, I owned about 7-8 years ago, I owned Ontario Web Design, Barrie Web Design, Toronto Web Design, Mississauga. I owned about 15 different properties, all that had web design in it and the city name. And my strategy behind it is when you're looking for a web designer, the first thing you do is you type in the city. Then the next thing that you would do is type in web design. So I included 3 keywords into the URL. Back then, that was that was a very successful strategy. It's not so relevant now. However, with that said, what you want to do is you want to develop a URL that's memorable. So my company's name is Turtleback Canada, so I've got turtlebackcanada.com. Well, that's a very lengthy name, and that's a very lengthy URL. And the one that I ideally would like is tbc.com, which is available. You can purchase tbc.com for $111,000, I think it is. So the shorter, the better, and the chances now of getting a 3-character URL are pretty slim. But certainly, if you can get one that's descriptive of your what you're doing, I would recommend that. So that way, people, when they're being inundated with websites, they're not talking about something that's a 50-character long URL. It's just a 3-character, 4-character, and it's memorable. Yeah. So sorry, as they're falling through the roof, it kind of threw me off. I think that was it. Now, so the URLs really don't impact your SEO all that much anymore, but you should be aware that sometimes you start off with the best intentions of your URL, and they come off looking really, really bad. So be very careful when you're selecting one. For example, IT Scrap has a URL. IT Scrap, the company name. But if you look at it very closely on the whiteboard and see their URL, it doesn't quite translate to IT Scrap. This is their URL. It's crap. So be careful. Actually, this one's good for you. Choose Spain. Chooses pain. American Scrap Metal. American Scrap Metal. So be aware. There's another one that's it's a power generator for Italy. If you want to have some fun, look it up. I'm not going to put that one up there. So teachers talking turns into teacher stalking. Children's wear turns into children's swear. So be aware of what you're doing. Look at it and have someone else look at the URL, because what might seem okay will turn into a very bad publicity situation for you or your organization. All right. So here's okay. So now see, this is in anticipation. I had these slides prepared before the start, stop, continue. In teams of 4 or 3 or 2, if you'd rather just work on your own, or 5, whichever way you want to work it. In teams, research an appropriate URL. And the company is an online tutoring service for marketing. So come up with an appropriate URL. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. See if it's available. And should the client go with .com, .ca, .net, or .org? All right, so you're looking for an online marketing tutorial company, and you're trying to develop a URL for it. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that in Teams. Yes, sir.
I know.
Okay, so you know why that's happening? Okay, so if you go into your WordPress site, WP. Okay, so you go down, so you go and set up. Yeah, you'll see it there. Yep. Okay, so if you go back here, somewhere here is a setting. It's for your website. Things I don't just put that in the development. Where you just got to set it up. Well, you can just change that setting. If you can't find it, just give them a call, and they'll be able to function in the right direction. I just don't know where it is to go down. You just say, profile, domain. Might want to try to learn how to set it so it's public. So it's just typically just a button. So there's nothing to worry about.
What do you understand by I'd say that tutorial services?
A tutorial. So I'm here tutoring. So say for example, you were having a problem with marketing, you would sit down with him and tutor him, teach him. Not even consulting. No, it's a student to student. Typically, it's peer-to-peer tutoring. So you're basically teaching what the instructor's taught.
Oh, all right.
Okay. All right. How are we making out? Okay. Okay, so this one.
We have, must be an existing company.
No.
We have to invent.
You come up with a URL. Yep, does not have to be an existing company, but it just can't be in existence now, like the URL. See if it's available. Basically, what I'm trying to demonstrate is the challenge of not only finding just the perfect URL, but now finding out whether or not it's available. We'll give everyone a couple minutes more. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Yes. No, you don't need to buy it. That's just the SSL certificate. It's not the domain. It's actually a setting within your website. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's make it.
Well, no. It's already got .com. That's what they're doing there is they're trying to sell you more domains. So you can just close that. Edit setting. It's got to be setting. So go back and edit site. Yeah, that's okay. That's just your. Yeah, that's the one. No, you don't have to make it again. Like I said, it's just a setting that if you can't find it, just call GoDaddy and say that you got this account and it's showing us coming soon. How do you change it? So it's just, like I said, it's just typically a button, so it's not really doing that. Okay, push forward. Okay, now try going to your, well, let's go to this one, because it's showing you that it's there, right?
I always be there.
Yeah, it's already set up in the background. It's just you haven't told GoDaddy that you're ready to put it live. So it's just a setting. It's not a big deal. It is there. Yeah. Okay. So actually, no, you're okay, so for this, we'll go over it in class. Okay, because I've got to get started again. But it has nothing to do with your assignment. Okay, so from the talk, I'd say that we're pretty good. Has anybody found a URL for a marketing tutoring organization? Have they come up with one? Brianna? Oh, me first?
No, not really. We found a couple that we thought we could change, like care.com
Yeah.
and also marketingtutor.net. We could change it to .com.
Yeah, and did it work? Is it available? Oh, okay. All right, that's cool. All right, so Vanessa, your group.
So we thought of a couple different ones, like tutor for me or tutor for you.
Yeah.
Some of them were available. Most of those were like .net.
Yeah.
That was already taken, so we could just change the ending.
Yeah.
And then we just thought of Edumacate.
Edumacate. Okay, now that's interesting. So is that available?
I think it was. Yeah.
Interesting. So this is what organizations are actually faced with now, because .com is such a saturated market that they're actually creating words that seem kind of nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. But Edumacate me, it's a slang, and yeah, sure, that would be a great website. So good job. Anyone else? Louis, your group?
Well, we were saying, we were checking tutor peers.
Yeah.
.ca. .com already exists, right?
Frustrating, isn't it, when you come up with the perfect URL and
It's already there, but .ca doesn't exist.
so you've got a .ca opportunity. Okay, cool. Did you get any? No. Okay, and you were all in the back, and you guys went, oh, we didn't get anything. Okay, so and you two, we already talked about that, so that was a misunderstanding. So all right, so as you can tell, finding the right URL isn't always the easiest thing in the world, and when you do find the perfect one, sometimes it's the most frustrating thing in the world because it's not available. Now, There are services out there, and some of you are being hosted right now by GoDaddy, where GoDaddy offers a service where they will try to buy that URL for you. So kind of like going back to what I was talking about with tbc.com, they will offer to buy it on my behalf, and they estimate how much it's going to cost. So they estimated the last time I checked on tbc.com that it was about $111,000 because it's such a popular thing. So here's something then. I'm going to look to you guys for. Should a company go with .com, .ca, .net, .org? What would you guys think?
.com.
.com, why?
Because people prefer that, like it's common, right?
Okay, it's a common thing. Okay, cool.
Well, it depends on what you're actually going for.
Okay.
Because I feel like .net and .org are more for like educating websites instead of like .com or .ca.
Okay, that's cool.
I would say use .ca if you're trying to target Canadians only.
Okay, interesting. All right, so actually, one of the reasons now, it's all personal preference. Originally, it was Google absolutely loved .com. They were in love with the idea of the .coms. So what happened was everyone realized this, and they all started taking up all the .coms. So now we've got, I think, there's .site, .xyz, there's .me, there's all sorts of additional ones now. Ideally, you've got some right ideas. So if you're a Canadian organization, if you're only focusing on the Canadian marketplace and you're proud to be a Canadian organization, .ca might be the way to go for you. For me, what I did was I was running with .ca for a little while, and I realized that my website had the opportunity for me to register .com. So what I did was I registered the .com, so I have both. And what I've done is I've basically forwarded, so if you were to hit my website .ca, it's going to be forwarded or redirected over to the .com. There's no real hard and fast, but yes, the .org is more for organizations. And originally when they launched it, you had to have an actual registered charity or organization before you could do it. Now, if you're an American company or a British company or a company from India or wherever, and you want to get a .ca, you can't. That's unique to Canadian customers only. So you have to have a Canadian website or a physical street address in Canada. So, okay, so great feedback. All right, now, so we've got the URL and we're creating now our first page, which is something now that you guys should be focusing on because this is going to be part of your lab. You want to come up with a page title that's not only interesting, but will captivate the person's attention. So one of the things that you should do is make it short. So let's say a page title where for Georgian College where it's financial aid. Financial aid's short, it's to the point, and you understand it. But if they were saying financial aid located in the office of the registrar on the first floor of C building as a page title, it gets too long. And what happens is it just ends up not being followed. You should, now Google has things called stop words. These are common words in the English language. So, in, at, that. Those types of words you can avoid in your page title. It looks a little chunky when you're writing because you might say for financial aid, if you really wanted to have financial aid located in the C building, we'll say, or actually in the office of the registrar, all you'd have to do is go financial aid, located financial aid, or located office registrar. Technically, that would work because you're avoiding all the stop words. So it's defined technically as words that are commonly filtered by search engines to speed up search results. Now, the other thing is that when you're doing page titles, always make sure that you include the elusive keywords in there that you've set up for that page. So if you've got an About Us, say, for example, for my personal website, I've got an About Me page, I would set up a keyword of instructor. And then in the About Me page, I could put About Me college instructor. And so what's going on is then people can type in, if they're looking for an instructor, they can type into Google and it will retrieve those things based on the keywords. So I've declared it on the page and I've also included it in the page title. Okay, so Berry Flower Shop is looking to create a page for a wedding flower service. What would be an appropriate page title? Not a site title, but a page title.
Wedding.
Weddings? Well, short and sweet. Okay. Now, if you're typing in weddings, though, and say, for example, I'm getting married and I'm doing a search on Google, and I just type in weddings, what's going to be buried in there? Like, what's going to, sorry, let me rephrase that. What's going to bury my search results? You're going to be talking about invitation services. You're going to be talking about chapels. You're going to be talking about officiants, all sorts of things that are going to be part of that wedding. So you want to be a little bit more specific. Floral service?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so wedding florist? Okay, so wedding florist would work. Because now, if you're typing in wedding florist, now all of a sudden it's going to start honing in. You could also type in, you could include in your page title where you're located. Like, so it'd be Berry wedding florist, or maybe it's Berry wedding bouquets, or Berry wedding flower service, something like that. But the florist really does encapsulate everything. So have we considered the keywords? So we've got Berry. So basically we're telling Google where we're looking specifically. And we've got florist and we've got wedding. So yes. Can we make this any better? So you got Berry florist, a wedding florist. Is there any other thing that we could include in there?
I don't know about the stuff, but the title, but you can customize the URL, right?
Okay, now don't forget though, you don't want to do too many custom URLs because you've got berryflowershop.com, say. So this is a page within the website. So you don't want to create a domain for that. You want to create just the page title within that website. So I think that we've pretty much nailed it down. We have considered the keywords. It is appropriate because it's short and it's memorable. And what we can do then is just add the links into our pages. Any questions on that? Clear as mud? Now, the only other thing that I might do is I might massage the page title to include bridal. Because I apologize how this comes out, but most grooms aren't doing a whole lot of research on weddings. They just aren't. So you want to do, maybe it's Berry bridal and wedding florist, or wedding florist and bridal services, or something like that, because the bride will go on, they'll type in bridal, they'll type in weddings, and all of a sudden now you're ranking a little bit higher. Now, okay, so see, you guys asked for in-class exercises and more hands-on, so you're getting it. Okay, so here's another one. We're going to give you a couple minutes to work on this. Tonight's the opening night for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know if any of you follow hockey at all. It's a big night for me. Very excited. So what we need to do is we want to come up with a page title that will be appropriate for the Toronto Maple Leafs ticket sales. And you can work in your same groups. But I'm going to go around asking everyone. So you don't have to do the research online based on what we've talked about. Just come up with a page title for the Toronto Maple Leafs ticket sales. Yeah, just work within your group. I didn't hear you. I didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Making sure. Lips is plural, right? The team
Yeah,
name.
it's a weird name because the singular for leaf is leaf. The plural for leaf is leaves.
Yeah.
But for this, it's leaves because one player is a leaf, multiple players are leaves. So it's not really the same convention in English as you would expect.
And Google can understand that.
Yes. Oh, you got it done? Perfect, good job. I'll figure it out. Okay, cool. So now you're up and ready to go. Good job. Okay, so I'll give everyone about a minute to wrap up and come up with your names. But there was an interesting conversation I had with Louis that sometimes in English, and I feel sorry for people that are, not sorry, but I feel badly for you that are just learning English because there's so many different things that go on with the English language. And for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs, a single leaf is a leaf. Plural is leaves. So technically it should be the Toronto Maple Leaves because you've got plurals. But the way that they use the naming convention for that is one single player is a leaf and a group of the players are leafs. So that's the way it is. And yes, Google does recognize that. As well, especially for an organization that's actually one of the largest in North America. So they would recognize that based on usage, based on searches, based on keyword development. Okay, so I kind of killed about a minute for you. So we're going to look at you guys because you guys were quiet the last one. So what page title do we come up with? Maple Tickets? Okay, the team name is Maple Leaf. So Maple wouldn't really tell everything. So Maple Leaf Tickets then. Okay, so Maple Leaf Tickets. Okay, so it gives keywords. People would certainly search for that. Absolutely. Okay, so that's not a bad one. Yeah.
I would add on to that and just say like on sale at the end maybe.
Okay, so Maple Leaf Tickets on sale.
Because you're not just you don't just want the keywords, you also want to grab their attention.
Absolutely. Okay, and anyone that tries to buy a Leaf ticket knows that you don't get them. So on sale is actually a very key point. You had a question, statement?
Yeah, I just write NHL.
NHL? Okay, so NHL Maple Leaf tickets. Okay. Any other ideas? What
I believe the games. I believe the game.
Maple Leafs the game?
Yeah.
Okay, now Maple Leafs the game is a little bit more challenging because there's 41 home games that you could be buying tickets for. So the game is singular, so if somebody's searching for that ticket, they go, I don't know which one it is. So you want to be a little bit more generic. So, but I know where you're going with that. So it's not bad, it's just that you need to be a little bit more generic. So anybody else come up with one they want to share? So far we've got Maple Leaf tickets on sale. Anyone else have one? Yeah.
I don't know if this worked, but like maybe shortening Maple Leaf, so it could be like Toronto Leafs on sale or discounted Toronto Leaf tickets.
Okay, now, do you follow hockey? Okay, so you could have shortened it even more because you shortened it from Maple Leaf tickets to Toronto Leaf tickets. How can you shorten it more?
Leaf tickets for sale.
Leafs tickets for sale, because any hockey fan doesn't identify them as the Toronto Leafs. They call them the Leafs or the Maple Leafs. So, okay, so we've got Leafs tickets on sale. Is there anything else that we could add to that? Yeah.
I have like different one.
Okay.
TML sale.
TML sale, ticket sales. Okay. Actually, that's an abbreviation for the Toronto Maple Leafs that Leaf fans actually do know. So they could look that up, and that's nice and short. So that does touch on some keywords as well. Yeah.
Upcoming.
Upcoming. Okay. So now we've got upcoming. So where do you want to put that? In the Leafs tickets on sale or?
Leafs, upcoming. So I was thinking upcoming Leafs games tickets.
Okay, so upcoming Leafs games tickets. Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Probably specify which game it is, like Monday night or something.
Okay, so now you're getting into more of a post.
Okay.
Because remember, the page is the general. That's what's going to house everything. So if you start getting a separate page for every game, your website's going to be hundreds of pages. So I know where you're going, and that would be an excellent idea for a post name. And we'll touch on what posts are in a couple seconds. All right, so we got Leafs games tickets. We've got Leafs tickets on sale. There's one that you could also look for is online, because sometimes the event sales are in person, sometimes they're online. So something might come up like Leafs tickets on sale online would be a good name. TML online sales, absolutely. So that's nice and short. So these are some of the ideas. Now you're starting to think a little bit more creatively, utilizing the keywords, and that's what you've got to do when you're naming the pages. Is come up with creative things that are also attention grabbing. So maybe for a page title, you could put awesome Leaf tickets on sale online. So now the person looks and they go, oh, whoa, these are the great seats. Okay, so I've got to go there. Because don't forget, Google's going to pull that result up, and you want to catch their attention among the 50 or 60 different pages that will come up as well. All right, now, alt tags. We had a question about it on the test. We've talked about it. What are alt tags? Oh, come on, everyone didn't get that question wrong, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's text hidden behind an image.
Okay, so it's text hidden behind an image. Why the heck would we want to do that?
Because it makes it accessible for people.
Sure, accessible for visually impaired, you mean? Okay, so it's an accessibility thing. We're going to actually talk about this later on this semester about the AODA, which is the Accessibility for Ontarians Disabilities Act.
It's for Google to understand what the image is all about.
Okay, so Google now understands it. So if we put it up a picture of a Toronto Maple Leaf player, and we say, okay, Toronto Maple Leaf player, and you want to be descriptive, because don't forget, Google is going to crawl your site, and it's going to pull up all the keywords, and as well, it's going to be based on the reader as well. So if you've got someone that's visually impaired, it's going to read and say, for example, it's John Tavares is the biggest player now of the Leafs organization. So you could have a picture of John Tavares. So it could say picture of John Tavares in a home jersey at the Leafs game. But the other thing that you've got to remember is sometimes, and I'm sure that we've all been there, where you go to a website and there's supposed to be an image there and it's not. And it looks awful. So what happens is the way that the HTML works is if it can't load the website or the picture, it will load the description. So at least the reader can have a look at what you're trying to show them. So yes, certainly it's used if an image can't be loaded. AOADA provide better context to search engines. So everyone understand why you need to do an alt tag? Now, what I'm going to recommend when you're creating your websites, make sure you've got alt tags. But here's how I do it, because I'm very busy, as you guys are. You've got assignments, you've got homework, you've got tests coming up. The last thing that you need to worry about are alt tags on your website. As you're adding the image to your website, add the alt tag at that point. Then you can forget about it. Because if you go, oh, I'll get to it later, and I've done that, I've been a victim of it, where I say, oh, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later. And then I look at my client's website, and none of their images have alt tags on them. And then you spend the next 4 days adding the alt tags to make sure that they're being found. So just add them as you're going. Okay, so all of that said, here's your image. What kind of alt tag could we write for this?
Georgian logo, Georgian call, no, that's not a logo.
Well, it is okay, that's our old logo. So technically Georgian logo would make sense. But what else can we say? We want to be descriptive.
Georgian College, Barry Campus.
Okay, so yeah, a picture of Georgian College, Barry Campus. What else do we see in there? Because don't forget, you want to be descriptive for the AODA.
Is that in front of C building?
Actually, that looks like that's you're seeing the health building, the Sadlin building, M.
Okay.
So you could put that. So Georgian College, Barry Campus with Sadlin building in the background. You can also describe what's going on. Blue sky, some clouds. So that people, if you close your eyes and I were to read the description to you, you can envision what it's saying. And like I say, it's important for visually impaired, but it's also important for Google, because now all of a sudden you're pulling up all sorts of different keywords. Blue, clouds, Sadlin building, and you're associating Georgian College with Sadlin. And if somebody's searching for a car in Barrie, I don't know if you know about Paul Sadlin, he's got a car dealership up here, and that's who he is. So if someone's looking for a car, they type in Sadlin, now all of a sudden your picture stands a chance of appearing in it. So you're getting additional search results. Okay, so yeah, that's a great job. Okay, so the AODA and what it means. Basically what was happening is in the past, all we were doing was developing websites for one type of person. People that can read, people that can see. And what was happening was historically people would look and go, well, of course they can see. They're on the internet. But now more and more Ontarians were saying, well, we can't do this. We can't read what's on the page. We can't see it. So the AODA developed a set of guidelines, and it's more focused towards government websites, but it's also, if you follow the guidelines, your website will actually appear higher in Google. Because don't forget what I've talked about in the past, is Google is all about the
User experience?
Bang, the UX. Okay, thank you. I was really starting to sweat, hoping that somebody at least got it. So Google's all about the user experience. So if we start excluding a segment of society that can't see, then we exclude another segment of society that can't read, it's not really a very good user experience. So you want to start developing that. So you should start developing alternatives for multimedia. So closed captioning, descriptive video. So if you do descriptive video as well as closed captioning, you're hitting the hearing impaired as well as the visually impaired. What does adaptable content mean, do you think?
Okay.
The main content? Okay, but what does adaptable mean though? Like what is it talking about?
To me, it sounds like based on the type of user, they show different content, but I don't think it's that.
You're close. You're actually really, really close. Based on the
Dynamic website.
yes, it's dynamic, and based on the individual user, it will display differently. So a responsive website will show differently on a big screen versus a phone. But an adaptive content means that, say, for example, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of men, there's more men than and there might be a couple others, but anyhow, so it affects us, and we look at it, we can't see that color. Well, if you've got text that's a lighter shade of that color we can't see, we're not reading it. So adaptive content means that now I can say, you know what, I can't read anything too light. And you can select a button on your website that will switch your content to black content with white writing, say or black background with white writing. Another example of an
So that's like with those websites, certain websites, they have like a button with a light bulb and you can change the color.
Yep, that's for adaptive.
That's for colorblind?
It's for colorblind or people that have a hard time reading one specific style. So what you're
I thought it was just like personal preference.
well, in a way it is personal preference. It's also out of need.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the other thing that happens is you can take the website and there's buttons that, like, you can install plugins through your website that makes it adaptive, that you select a button and you can change the size of the font accordingly. So if I'm okay, I'm looking at a website and Brianna, you're looking at a website. Your eyesight's far younger than mine, so chances are the resolution on your screen is a lot smaller than mine because, well, frankly, mine is big because I can't read small print anymore. So your needs are different than mine. So what we're doing now is we're being adaptive and saying, okay, you know what? Because you can read the small stuff and you don't like seeing the big font, you can select the small. I can't read the small. I select the big, and all of a sudden the web becomes responsive and adaptive to the customer's needs or the visitor's needs.
Oh, but that's when you enter a website. Sometimes there are some websites. You access website says you want to see the mobile website or follow the full website.
That's different. Okay, so if you still see websites like that, I'm surprised. But what was happening in the past was when you develop a website that before the responsive sites, and the difference between a static or a standard website and a responsive website is how you see it on the big screen on the desktop is different than how you see it on your phone. But back in the day, we didn't have that flexibility of the auto sensing. So you would create an M dot. So keithconnell.ca was my desktop version. Then I'd do an M dot keithconnell.ca, which is set up differently so it would display a little bit more realistically on a phone. So that's what you're talking about there. So that's the mobile selection. And I'd be surprised if there's a lot of websites out there anymore, because again, we go back to the user experience. Input assistance. Don't forget that when you're creating websites, if you do any for your customers or for your companies that you work for, also remember that there's people that may not be comfortable with doing stuff online or have not used an online form before. I know it sounds kind of crazy. Everyone's used online forms, but no, they really haven't. Like senior citizens, for example, if they go online and they don't know how to enter in their birth date on a form and they enter it in wrong, maybe they type it in full and you're just looking for the date field, then it'll just throw an error and they don't know what it is. So now what you've got to do is you've got to do input assistance. Encourage them, tell them what to do. So these are all part of AODA, page titles and meta descriptions. Now meta descriptions, if you get a chance to utilize the meta description, I'd strongly recommend it. And if you're on WordPress, there's a plugin called Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T. And what Yoast does is it gives you search engine analysis of your page, but it also gives you the ability to do a custom meta description. And that's where you want to make sure that your content is including the keywords, etc. All right, so here's one. A couple questions for you. How long should a post? Okay, actually, before I start talking about post, what's the difference between a post and a page? Yeah.
Pages are static.
Okay.
And blog posts are dynamic.
Okay, very good. Now, how do you mean dynamic?
I don't know.
Okay, you just threw that out there because it sounded technical.
It sounds like the opposite of static.
Okay, so sure, the pages are static. They're designed to contain all your basic information. A good example of a static page would be an About Us page, where there's not a whole lot changing on it. Now, a post is basically a page that you set up. It's a blog posting that you set up, but it's set up in reverse chronology, meaning that your most recent posts will appear on a list first. And what that's good for, and there was a question that alluded to it earlier today about RSS. Does everyone know or anyone know what RSS means? What it stands for? You're not going to believe me when I tell you. It's real simple syndication. You may see this question later in this semester. Real simple syndication, RSS. And what it is basically if you register with a website, say you register with keithconnell.ca, and you want to learn more about any time I put up a new post, then you can sign up for my RSS feed. And can you think of a website that does that, where somebody makes a posting and you get a notification of it? Anyone have an idea for a website? What website would do that? Vanessa?
Clothes.
Clothes?
Something new comes out, you get subscription.
Sure. So a clothing website, but any specific websites can you think of that would utilize the RSS real simple syndication base?
You mean that we receive a notification?
Yeah, you receive a notification of a website that you might subscribe to when somebody makes a new post.
Jobs.
Jobs, okay. I hear Blackboard. When I make a posting, you get notifications. Now we're getting on the right path. YouTube, okay. See, now we're getting there. For anyone that subscribes to my YouTube channel, you'll get postings or notifications every time I go live. And it says, I'm recording a new live video, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
So I think it's like posts are content and pages are information.
Exactly. So posts are content. So basically what it's doing is it's driving fresh content to your website. All right. And pages are basic information. Now, can you have a page with posts on it? Yes, you can. Like, for example, if you think of most home pages that have a news section, for example, or a new product section, those are pages that are static, but they have the post plugin set up as well. Does that make sense?
But in a blog, when you write, that is a post.
Yes. So say, for example, you on your website. Okay, I'll use my personal resume. So every time I took a new course at Georgian, I would create that course as a post. So I would type out all the details about the course, and then I'd select the category, and it would take that, and the category for mine was in progress, I think it was, and it would take that description and file it under in progress, so that when I have on my website, I have a section that says show all the courses that are in progress. And so as I make that new post, which is the description, it would show on my website under that section. All right. So how many keywords, if you've got, okay, so how long should a post be? An optimal length for a post. Anybody know? Now this is where I'm going to be really generous to you guys. 150? I hear 150. Do I hear 200? 200, anywhere 200, 200. Okay, it's actually 300 words is the optimal length for a post. So based on a 300 word post, which by the way, we're going to get to for your takeaway assignment or your homework for this week or your lab, whichever way you want to work it, you only need to write 300 words. Out of that 300, though, how many times can a keyword appear in that 300 word? Yeah.
Up to 6.
Up to 6.
But less than hopefully.
Yeah, okay, so up to 6 would give you only 2%.
You don't want to overuse it.
No, but you don't want to underuse it either. So the rule of thumb is between, it's a broad rule of thumb, it's between 2 to 6%. So what I usually do is try to aim for the 4%. So you can use it up to 12. 12 or 13, yeah, that's fine. So now there are ways around this when you're writing a blog. And say, for example, I've declared the keyword to be Keith. I can now start, well, actually, Keith's a bad one. We'll go back to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'm now kind of pigeonholed that I can only use the Toronto Maple Leafs a certain number of times in my post. However, what I can do now is start coming up with alternatives. A hockey team, the Toronto team, the Toronto-based hockey organization, things along those lines, synonyms that you can come up with. I think I talk about that in a second. So really, you should only follow about 2 keywords on your actual blog posts. Yeah.
How do you declare a keyword?
It's actually done if you've got Yoast installed on your WordPress, which I'd strongly recommend. I don't know if I mentioned that. It gives you the opportunity to declare it right away. Like it said, well, it's not right away. It's at the bottom of your page, but it'll say keyword, and then you can type in 1 or 2 words or phrases. So it should be about 2 keywords. Now we can get around the limitation. I was just talking about that. So synonym. That's a difficult word, and it's not the spice that we like in our cinnamon rolls. What is a synonym?
Similar word for it's a similar word.
Similar word. Okay, perfect. So a synonym is a word or phrase that means exactly or near the same as another word or phrase in the same language. So if we're writing school, we could talk about an institution. We could talk about organization, education. So these are things that are synonyms, that they mean the same thing, but they're different words. And you can use those. And now what you're doing is you're taking advantage of additional keywords without declaring them. Okay, so you can also include those, certainly. So for example, baffle, confuse, or deceive. You've got beautiful, attractive, pretty, lovely, stunning, etc., etc. So you've got the list there. I don't have to go through them all, but those are examples of synonyms. So as you can see, if I'm looking for my page keyword is happy, I can put content. I can put joyful. And those are all similar meanings, but now what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of more opportunities. Okay, so let's have a look at this. I'm going to give you a second to read it and tell me what you think that the key word is declared on this post or this paragraph at least. What's the key word?
SEO.
Okay, that was fast. So you think it's SEO. Why do you feel it's SEO?
Because it's most SEO on the website or something like that, right?
Okay. All right. So
I've heard the website.
okay, so we see SEO a couple times, but we also are starting to see now they're bringing in synonyms. They're taking the SEO term and broadening it to search engine optimization as well. So yes, absolutely. I would agree with you that it's SEO because you're looking, I'm seeing, we're excited to simplify SEO for everyone through our software, education, and community. So what you're seeing now is also engaging the consumer by utilizing additional keywords throughout. All right, so headlines, do's and don'ts. So certainly use numbers to catch interest. And I don't mean the actual physical number. I'm saying if I turn to you today and said, okay, today we're only going to learn 3 things, the 3 most important things that you're going to ever need to know about school we're doing today, you're going to listen. But if I turned to you and said, well, we've got 75 things we're going to learn today about, well, maybe about school, I guess, you're not going to listen as much. So use the numbers to captivate a person's interest. Typically, if you're talking about a post or a blog, and if you think back to your to what you read through Reddit or through LinkedIn or any of the other types of news services, what you're going to find is more people are going, 5 things that are the most important thing that you need to employ on a post that your competitors wish you didn't know. All of a sudden, I'm going, wow, okay, that's kind of an intriguing title. So use keywords in it. Try to keep the headline to less than 70 characters. Why? Why would we want to keep the headline to less than 70 characters?
Just to give them an idea of what you are looking at.
So
Not the content.
yeah, condensed. Yeah. So
User experience.
user experience condensed. Yeah.
If it's too long, no one would read it.
Okay. So again, going back to the condensing. Did she steal your thunder? Did you have it? Oh, you didn't have it? Oh, okay. All right. Absolutely. You got to keep it brief because in this day and age, people don't want lengthy headlines. They just want quick. And typically what will happen is, and if you think through the way you read an article, you scan the headlines and you go, okay, yeah, I want to read this paragraph. I don't want to read this paragraph. And you actually read based on headlines as well. Use appealing adjectives such as surprising. 3 surprising things you need to know about applying makeup in the dark. Well, okay. See, I caught your attention. So, you know, something like that. All of a sudden, now you've got the reader's attention and they want to read on. Use intrigue. The secret to success in 3 easy steps. Wow, I want to read that. The secret to total happiness in 5 steps a day. You're going to read things like that because they're intriguing. All right, well, I'm just looking at the time. I want to get to homework. Okay, so lab forgiveness. This is my generous side of me. So the lab forgiveness we've talked about. What I need you to do is on your website, whatever the subject of your site is, you need to write 1 blog post. Okay, a blog, 300 words in length, and you've got to have the title, a keyword pointed out, and make it an interesting headline. Okay, and then submit the link for that post through Blackboard. All right, does that make sense so far? Don't submit through email. I'm going to lose them. Yeah.
I'm assuming it has to be one that doesn't already exist on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, if you've already got a blog written, then you could submit that one. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not going to punish you. You've already done some of the work. So if you've already got one written, submit it, but make sure that it follows the guidelines we've talked about today. So you may want to massage it a little bit. All right. So like I say, what I'm going to do is it's going to replace your lowest mark that you've received thus far in labs. It cannot make your mark go lower.
When is it due?
It'll be due by next class, 9 a.m. next class. Does that sound fair?
So what it's about, it's the topic.
It depends on what your topic of your website is. So if you're talking about Louis, you can talk about something that interests you or your experience. I think there's a chef in here. He can talk about maybe a dish that he's made. Also include a picture on your posts because people love seeing pictures. Okay? Any questions? No, everything's good. So I've explained the assignment clearly to you. Everyone's comfortable with it because I can re-explain. I've gone over it. This whole slide deck is basically what this lab is about. Yes. What? Okay. Whatever your website's about, make it relevant. So what's your website about? You personally? Okay. So your resume. So what are you hoping to do by the time you get out of school? Hospitality industry. Okay, so you can write a blog about something to do with your experience in the hospitality industry, where maybe you had a customer who wasn't satisfied and what you did to solve that. Sounds like a very bad dentist. So what you might have done to solve that problem. So, but make it interesting. Make the headline something that I want to read. Okay, so it might be the 2 things I learned about customer service. Interesting. You know, I like to use that.
I have already made a blog on hospitality.
Perfect.
So
So
I just
you can submit it, but make sure that it's following what we've talked about. And if it's too long or too short, then I'd rework it. Okay, so does everyone understand today's assignment?
Can you post this private on that?
I believe it's already there. If not, I'll post it by the end of today or by like in a couple of hours. It's posted. See that? Look at that. I'm right on top of things. Yeah. It's due by 9 a.m. next class. So you've got an entire week to just write 300 words. Okay, thanks guys. Yeah. Okay, actually, he's first, then I'll come back. Make it longer, but yes, I think it's make sense. No, it's your blog. Okay, perfect. So then just. And you're good.
I guess like for the design, but
Okay, don't worry about it right now. Do this assignment. So you got a 0 on lap 3. You do this assignment, it replaces that 0. No, it could be like, say for example, if you got a landmark in another lab, which is on lab 3, it'll replace that one. So you've done 3 labs, it'll replace your lowest lab. Then that will replace your 0. Yeah, so say for example, you got 0 in lab 1, and you got perfect in lab 3, or in this one that we're doing. That 2 will make up that could override that 0.
yeah.
Not much I can do about that. It'll replace one of them. It won't replace all of them. In an in-class lab, that's what this is today. What we just talked about. The data. No, just write a blog and submit the blog. The link. All right. And then once I've marked it, if it's, say for example, a 2, and you've got a 1 on one of your labs, it will replace that 1. And so then it'll be, that lab will show as a 2. So it's giving you a chance to make up some assignments. Just, give me the link for post, like what you've just written there, but that's going to include the link to your website. So I can click on that. Okay, all right. Yes, I will. That'll give me the actually, you know what, when you submit that, I'll look at your website. No problem. Yes. Yeah, so you write a blog, and you put it on your website. Yeah, so you write an article, whatever, okay, so what is it that your site is about?
Just from a student about myself. Just it is in.
Is it a resume? Okay, so what is it you want to achieve when you're done school?
So I have a basketball game.
Okay, but what is, okay, if this is a resume site, what do you want, what kind of a job do you want? Okay, so I wouldn't write a blog about doing dishes, that's kind of boring. Oh, the dishes, oh, okay, not doing dishes. Okay, that's a really, 2 things that I learned about cooking pasta.
That's what I made in a
So, yeah,
explain it over there.
absolutely, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be the English stuff, so I gotta read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a perfect one, so make it intriguing, 300 words, and then submit it
Yeah, sure.
and have some fun with it.
Yeah, the website you want to,
How do you create the
Sorry?
URL? What do you choose?
Yes,
So that you have to
where the post is, where I find the
You
post.
choose Word.
So it'll produce that for you, and then you just say, this is what you find.
Oh, you're not in this class?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, sorry. I will try to create the website.
Okay.
I contact if I have some issues.
If you have any issues, just reach out to me.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem, Louis.